Okay, this is going to be still section 6.4 through 6.6, and this is video number 4. So I'm going to continue to go through this. So cosecant 2 theta plus 2, so again there's no amplitude. The period would be 2 pi over 2, which is pi. There's no phase shift, but there's a vertical shift of 2. So we're getting that all from the equation. So again, we're going to do 2 periods. So if the period is pi, we're going to go out 4 spaces and put a pi, and then go 4 more spaces and put a 2 pi. Half of pi is pi over 2. Then we have pi fourths, 3 pi fourths, 5 pi fourths, 6 pi fourths, and 7 pi fourths. And that's all we need to do since there's no horizontal or phase shift. There is a vertical shift of 2, so I'm going to go ahead and do that vertical shift of 2. So if you think back at your parent graph for cosecant, it's the reciprocal of sine. So without a phase shift, our first asymptote is on the y-axis. Remember I said earlier that it helps if you know that for cosecant, that first asymptote, again, this is without a phase shift, is on the y-axis, but for secant, it's one past the y-axis. And you know, hopefully, that they come every 2. Oops, I kind of missed that one. Okay, so we're just going to end up then, so remember this is now the x-axis, so we're going to go, oops, not going it, one above, and then one below, and then one above, and one below. And there's what that graph looks like. Let's do this one. This one has a phase shift. So again, there's no amplitude. The period is 2 pi because the coefficient is 1 there. There's a phase shift of negative pi halves and a vertical shift of 0. So we have to talk about what this 2 and the negative do to the graph. As you know, the negative is going to reflect it. So let's go ahead and let's put in our quarter marks first. Since our period is 2 pi, we're going to have a 2 pi there, 1, 2, 3, and a 4 pi out there. And we have a pi over 2, a 3 pi over 2, a 5 pi over 2, a 6 pi over 2, and a 7 pi over 2. Now there is a phase shift of negative pi over 2, so I'm going to put that in here, which means I'm also going to erase this last one so I don't accidentally use it. Okay. So now, a couple of things. First of all, what the 2 does is, if you remember right, in the parent graph, you would go, for example, to 1, and it would go up, and then there'd be an asymptote, and then you'd go down to -1 and go down, and then there would be an asymptote, and so on. So here's what the 2 does. The 2, right now, there's 2 spaces. So from the middle axis, you go up 1 and down 1 to get these 2 points. For the 2, what's going to happen is for this one, you're going to go up 2, and for this one, you're going to go down 2. So it widens the space between the branches. So that's what the 2 does. What the negative does is it's going to reflect it over the x-axis. So normally we'd have a branch going up this way. The first branch, though, for us is going to go down this way. So that's what all of that does. So now Again, we have a phase shift. So what's nice with the phase shift with the asymptotes is you can move the asymptotes first and then everything's going to fall into place. So if you think about it, for secant, for the parent graph, the first asymptote is 1 past the y-axis. So if I'm going to move that back pi halves, it means now that the first one is going to be actually on the y-axis. And of course, they're going to come every 2 because that's the pattern. Okay. So now again, normally like up here, we'd have one going here, but now because it's negative and it's a 2, that half a branch is going to start down there. The next branch is going to go up to 2 and go there. Then we're going to be down at negative 2. And then we're going to be up at positive 2. And then we'll have a half branch down here at negative 2. Alrighty. We're just going to do a couple of graphs on this page. We're only going to do a couple more. I feel like we've kind of exhausted the graphing here. So let's see for this graph. So let's see. Amplitude, of course, is none. Period is pi over b, which would be pi. There's a phase shift of positive pi force on the inside. So again, cotangent has some asymptotes, so that's going to help us there. And there's a vertical shift of a positive 3. All right, and remember the 1/2, just like it did with the tangent graph, it kind of scrunches it in the middle. So let's see what happens. So if I go out 1, 2, 3, 4, there we're going to have pi, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, there's our 2 pi. And if we go ahead and mark all of our quarter marks, so this is 5 pi 4, 6 pi 4, 7 pi fourths, 8 pi fourths, and then because there's a phase shift of pi fourths, I'm going to go ahead and put in 9 pi fourths because I'm going to use that. So there's a vertical shift of 3, so I'm going to put that in there. So for cotangent, if you remember right, our first asymptote was on the y-axis, but because of our pi 4 shift, our first asymptote is going to be at pi fourths, and then we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Our second one is going to be at 5 pi fourths, and our third one will be at 9